Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. On today's episode, we are going to, look back at the victory over Brighton in the Carabao Cup. Arsenal booked their place in the last 8 of this season's League Cup, having dispatched of Brighton. I don't want to say easily, because that certainly wasn't the case. There were points in the game where we were up against it. There were points in the game where it looked as though Brighton were going to dump us out. There were points in the game where I was really concerned. Really concerned. So anyway, let's break it down. First of all, a big hello to everybody who's in the live chat. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all good. Thank you so much for being here. Apologies that we're a little bit late starting the live stream today. I know it sounds like I've always got an excuse, but today was actually quite funny. So my daughter, I've got two daughters. I've got a son and 2 daughters. And my middle child, my 4-year-old daughter, decided today when she woke up that she wanted, you know, those Muller yogurts where they've got the little sort of chocolate balls that you mix into the main yogurt, and they have sort of white and milk chocolate balls, and you put them into the yogurt and you mix them around and you get this lovely yogurt with crunchy bits of chocolate inside it. She decided that she wanted one this morning, and she had the meltdown of all meltdowns, to the point where I'm like, I got a podcast to do. I can't go out and get you the yogurts. Like, I haven't got time. So what have I done? I've done a Just Eat groceries order. And of course, comes up on your phone. It says they're around the corner. Get ready to receive delivery. And then the guy took bloody ages to find my house. Hence why I'm a few minutes late. But I can tell you that if you've heard one of my daughter's meltdowns, that you would do everything within your power to get her what she wants before you can get on with your day. So that's my excuse for today. Muller corners. That's the right word I was looking for. Anti-clockwise. Thank you so much. Look, there's a lot of you catching us live for the first time, or for the first time in a while. So a big hello to you. Make sure you're interactive in the live chat, and we will take some of your questions and thoughts as the pod goes on. A big shout out, as I say, to every single one of you that's with us live, and to those that will be watching this back or listening to this back on Apple, Spotify, or wherever. So Arsenal progress to the last 8 of this season's League Cup, and we're going to face Crystal Palace at home in the quarterfinal. Now, you might look at that and think that's a good draw. And I think given what the draw could have been, like obviously Chelsea are in the competition, Newcastle are in the competition, Manchester City are in the competition. Actually, Palace at home feels like a decent draw. But we all saw the difficulty with which, we sort of faced Crystal Palace the other day, just a few days ago, less than a week ago. We got past them, but it was hard. But I always think that when we do what we do in this cup competition, and I do expect Mikel Arteta to just up the ante a little bit in terms of his team selections moving forward in this competition. Being at home, when you make a lot of changes, being at home is a comfort. And I'm glad we're at home. And as I say, the draw could have been much worse. But if you think that Crystal Palace are just going to lay down and die for us to book a place in the semi-finals, forget about it. What was really interesting last night was that, yes, Crystal Palace made changes at Anfield, but nowhere near as many as Liverpool. And that's in part because I think Oliver Glasner fancies his chances. But that's also because Crystal Palace just have a much smaller squad. And there isn't actually that many options available to Oliver Glasner. So whatever he does against us, whoever he picks, that's going to be a pretty strong Crystal Palace team. And so don't take them lightly. Don't assume that we're going to be in the semi-finals. Don't take it as a granted. We've got to go out and do the job. And listen, if we're being honest, it wasn't always comfortable last night. We got there in the end. And I would argue that Mikel Arteta last night got the perfect outcome. Why do I say that? Because he made 10 changes. He protected some of our key players. A few of them played a handful of minutes at the end, 20 odd minutes or so. But Arsenal have got the outcome that they wanted. They've progressed through to the next round, having given opportunities to players that haven't played that much, having given minutes to players that needed minutes in terms of fitness, but also while protecting some of the key players and only utilizing them when it was really kind of necessary towards the end of the game, just to kind of establish our power on the match after having taken the lead. So, yeah, I think, if you're Mikel Arteta, you roll the dice, don't you, going into this game by making 10 changes? Like, whatever way you look at that, that's a gamble. But that gamble has paid off. Was the performance great throughout? No. But we've got the outcome that we wanted. And I talked in the build-up to this game, didn't I, about there being certain matches that you will be able to get through even at 70%. And you need a bit of luck along the way. And I thought we had a bit of luck yesterday, because I felt like Brighton on another day could have taken some of those opportunities that they fashioned in the first half, and we would have been up shit street. Now, we had players on the bench. We had big boys on the bench that we could have brought on to try and turn the tide and swing the game back our way. But my point is that, sometimes you roll that dice as a manager, and when it comes off, it's great. When it doesn't, there'll be questions asked. But when it does, you get all the praise and all the credit in the world. I've got the team sheet from last night. I was commentating on the match for Arsenal.com. So if you check the highlights on the Arsenal website or on the Arsenal YouTube channel, and I'm sure the match replay will be available at some point today as well. It will be myself and David Hillier on commentary. And I'm just looking at that Arsenal bench again. Like, that bench is crazy. It was Raya, Gabriel, Saka, Timber, Gyökeres, Trossard, Calafiori, Zubimendi, and Rice. That's as good an Arsenal substitutes bench, probably, as I've ever seen. Let's take some of your comments from the live chat and see what you guys are saying. Jason Swift, just on that story about my daughter, says, your daughter's already a gooner if she's having meltdowns already. It's true. Just on that, safe hands, Chris, as a fellow parent, I can totally relate. Evolution Education says, first time fellow Greek gunner. Welcome, mate. Good to see you. Robert is with us, says it was a thoroughly enjoyable evening. It was indeed. Candyman says, another game where our rivals drop off and Arsenal keep a clean sheet again. Good times. Yeah. And do you know what? There's a really astonishing stat that sort of was doing the rounds last night, and I think it was Opta that put it out. In October, Arsenal become the first English top flight team in history to play 6 games in a month, win them all, and without conceding a single goal. That is remarkable. So it's the first time a top flight English team have ever played 6 games in a month, won them all, and not conceded a single goal while doing so. So, people can knock our defensive approach, if you want to call it that, all you want, but my God, is it effective. And even last night, like, we'll come on to talk about the team selection in a minute. Even last night, with multiple changes, and I know Brighton sort of had a few opportunities and probably should have scored a goal, we've kept another clean sheet. And maybe when you kind of analyze the performance, you'll think that on this particular occasion, we maybe didn't deserve to keep the clean sheet. But it's part of building that mentality, isn't it? And it's not just about the mentality that it breeds within our football club. It's the kind of view that people outside of Arsenal have of us. And it's that view that continues to kind of, become more and more of a kind of, it's not a myth because it's true, but it's a kind of legend, isn't it? And when you face something legendary, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be less confident. And I really do believe that with Arsenal, that's the case. I really do believe that people turn up to play us now and they go, oh God, how are we going to score against this lot? Like, they're pro footballers and they will find ways and they will try. And they're not going to go into a game down in tools. But in the back of your mind somewhere, there must be that niggling feeling as an opposition player of, how the hell do we break this lot down? And, are we just going to run our socks off for nothing, essentially? So there is that kind of aura that we've created as a team. And the more things like this come to light, 6 games in 1 month without conceding a goal, winning every single one of them, the more that aura grows and it becomes more and more difficult, I think, for rivals to put it out of their heads. Guitar Solo is saying that he's going to be quiet and be a good boy. No, you don't have to be quiet, mate. You can say whatever you like in the chat within reason. You can share your opinions and share your views. I just feel like you're always moaning about me being a couple of minutes late or whatever. You know, people ask me questions, and apparently, according to Guitar Solo, I don't answer them quickly enough. But it's like, what sort of one-man podcast would it be if I just went, yes, no, maybe, yes, no, maybe? We'd be done in 5 minutes, and then it wouldn't be a podcast, would it? So, yeah, that's the format of the show, mate. That's the format of the show. Let's keep rolling through the chat a little bit because it is popping off this morning. A big thank you to everybody who is live with us at the moment. While I remember, if you haven't done so already, please leave a like on the video. That really, really does help. And make sure that you are subscribed to the channel if you're with us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, make sure you're subscribed too. That really, really does help. And if you want to go on further, you can check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/The Chronicles of Aguna. The link is in the description below. You can sign up for less than the price of a cup of coffee per month. And after every game, we'll bring you a special Patreon exclusive piece. And we've got one coming up a little bit later on today. So that'll be with you this afternoon. So now's a good time to sign up. And we've got analysis after the game against Crystal Palace at the weekend. We talked a lot about how they managed to stifle us, some of the lessons we can learn from that. And we've got another episode coming up a little bit later on today. So if you want to support me to bring you daily Arsenal content, then that's the way to do it. But just likes and subscribing is also a massive, massive help. So signing up as a patron, you're not obliged to do that, and it's certainly not a requirement. But if you'd like to go that one step further, you get exclusive bonus content. You get every single episode that we do completely ad-free. Plus, you become part of the Patreon family, and we can direct message, and you can be part of the chat within the Patreon app. So yeah, lots of reasons to sign up. And as I say, it costs less than the price of a cup of coffee, certainly in London anyway. Okay, let's start with that team selection then. I say let's start. He says 12 minutes in. Maybe Guitar Solo's got a point. Anyway, 10 changes to the side. Mikel Arteta made 10 changes to the team that beat Crystal Palace at the weekend. And I got to be honest, I didn't see this coming. I have to be completely honest. If I sort of run through the team that we saw, let me just bring it up on the screen for those of you that are watching so we can discuss it together. If I'm being completely honest, I thought that Mikel Arteta would go a little bit stronger than he actually did. Now, that's not to play down some of the players that ended up playing, because obviously I think they're good players, and I think I've spoken about it many, many times. I think we've got a really good squad nowadays, and that obviously puts us in a really good position and gives us that flexibility. But there were a few questions for me anyway. So first of all, goalkeeper, no problem. I picked Kepa in my team. I've said it before. I trust Kepa. I think he's as good a second choice goalkeeper as you're going to get. Ben White's back and needs the minutes. No issue with me with Ben White playing at right back. I know I've said in recent weeks that for me, Jurriën Timber right now is clear of him, and I stick by that. But Ben White is a very, very good player. Mosquera, no issues with that. I wondered if Hincapie was going to play from the beginning at centre-back. I did. And the reason I wondered that was because, A, fitness-wise, he's not quite there, given how much football he's missed. But at the same time, how do you get there if you don't play? So that's the kind of counter-argument to my point. But then Lewis Skelly at left-back again, I completely agreed with that selection and was fine with that. Just on Hincapie for a minute, there was a part of me that thought that had Gabriel not really kind of pushed it to make himself available at the weekend when he did against Crystal Palace, I think Gabriel would have played. I think there are certain players within our team that Mikel Arteta, needs to protect, but also understands their kind of integral nature to the side. And I think when you make 2 changes at centre-back against very good Premier League opposition, and that's what Brighton are, you're taking a risk. And that's why I talked at the very beginning of the show about Mikel rolling the dice and having a bit of a gamble. Hincapie coming in wasn't an issue, but Hincapie and Mosquera, and I know we trust Mosquera quite a lot at the moment, and we've all been impressed, that felt like the kind of step that maybe Mikel in the past wouldn't have taken. And so I was reluctant to believe that that was what he was going to go with. In the midfield, Christian Norgard came in. He played with Mikel Merino and Ethan Nwaneri. Again, in terms of individuals, I've got no real issues with those guys. They're all brilliant squad players. I feel like without Zubimendi in the team, we're not as good at progressing the ball through the lines. And I know there are some players that are just so good that you cannot replace them. And you can talk about having all the depth in the world, but you're just not going to mirror that level. And I feel like I'm getting to that point with Zubimendi where I look at him and I just think you are leagues above so many other players that play in that position. And as much as I like Christian Norgard, he's not going to do the same job. And I thought there were moments in the game where Christian Norgard was a little bit sloppy and in a way that I just don't think Martin Zubimendi ever, or at least rarely is. But listen, Nwaneri deserved to start. He, for me, can count himself, I think, unlucky that he's not played more than he has. Because when I think about it, for a period of time, when Odegaard's been kind of up and down, Ethan Nwaneri's sort of been knocking on that door. It's been made very, very clear that he is viewed as a central player for Arsenal, someone that will operate in those central spaces rather than the wide player that he kind of become temporarily last season in the absence of Saka. So, and then I look at some of Eze's performances, and I know he scored against Crystal Palace at the weekend, but I looked at some of his performances at 10 in the past, and I thought, you are not really doing it on this particular day. And so if I'm Ethan Nwaneri and I'm sitting there and I'm watching Eze play and not really be involved as much as we'd like him to, not really being able to find the pockets of space where we can pick him out, not really impacting the game. I was looking at it and I was going, if I'm Ethan Nwaneri, I'm sitting there on the bench and I'm looking at this and I'm going, I'm not saying Eze is not a good player. And I'm not regretting for a second the fact that Arsenal have signed him as a fan, but I'm sitting there if I'm Ethan Nwaneri and I'm saying, I can do that. I can do that. And so he got his opportunity last night and he took it. The forward line really, really surprised me. Now, I'm not surprised that Eze was the one of the first teamers, if you like, that continued in the side because he had a much lesser load during the international break. Obviously, Martinelli's out. I'd imagine Trossard's going to be the one that plays from the left-hand side against Burnley at the weekend. So there was a want to keep him fresh and sharp. And I think he has looked very fresh and very sharp of late. And as I say, over the course of the last few weeks, has probably had a lesser workload. So fine. But to play Dowman and Harriman-Annous in the same team, that is ballsy from Mikel Arteta. That is really, really ballsy to line up against Premier League opposition, a side that has the potential to dump you out on your own patch and to rock up and pick a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, no matter how talented, I think is huge. It shows huge cojones. And, in the past, Mikel Arteta has been criticised for not being brave enough. In the past, we've said that, he's been too pragmatic. We've said that he's been too afraid, I suppose, of making changes and trusted in certain players to the point where that's then led to others being run into the ground and really, really struggling. I feel like here he showed a real belief and trust in the group. And that team selection, 10 changes, that says that to me. And to include Dowman when there was maybe a temptation to play Saka for maybe the first hour and do it the other way around and have Dowman playing the last half an hour or whatever, that shows faith in the young man. He'd have been absolutely buzzing with that. And for Harriman-Annous, it feels to me like Mikel Arteta is making the point. And we had this discussion during the commentary last night with former Arsenal man David Hillier. It feels to me like Mikel Arteta has gone, I'm not going to play square pegs in round holes anymore. I'm not going to pick makeshift strikers anymore when I've got young strikers, young players who are impressing at academy level and are knocking on the door. I'm going to pick specialists in their positions now. And if that means I'm going to give the opportunity to a 17-year-old rather than trying to shoehorn Mikel Merino in there somewhere, then so be it. That's what I'm going to do. And I kind of rate that because one of the things that I think Arsenal have been really, really good at doing in recent years is obviously offering a pathway to these young players. And that has helped us in terms of convincing Nwaneri to stay when there was a lot of interest and a lot of noise around him. It's helped us in convincing Max Dowman that this is the place to do his scholarship, and also, Max Dowman will agree a professional contract, I beg your pardon, with Arsenal that will take effect when he comes of age. All of that is in part because of decisions like this, where you're showing people that there is a way through. There is a route to the first team. We've seen it with Bukayo Saka. We've seen it with Miles Lewis-Skelly. We've seen it with Ethan Nwaneri. Before that, we've seen it with Eddie Nketiah. And we've seen it with others. Arsenal are probably better than most of the big clubs at doing that. But also, you got to be cautious to a point as well, because we're talking Max Dowman, who's 15 years old. And we're talking Andre Harriman-Annous, who's 17 years old. So these lads, they've got to be protected and managed well, but also the carrot's got to be dangled in front of them. You've got to give them that belief that they belong here. And these experiences, they are invaluable. Neither of them scored last night. Both of them showed good moments, though. And so that's enough for them to kind of really believe that they belong at this level. For us as fans to now have greater trust in them, should they be selected further down the line. But also that experience, man, it's so invaluable. And at the same time, you take them out before it becomes, a sort of negative experience. Because, for example, if you played those two guys, they didn't get a sniff, Arsenal lose, then people are going to go, oh, why did he pick Dowman and not Saka? Why did he pick Harriman-Annous instead of Gyökeres or Sticky Marino up front? And all of a sudden, without even being at fault, those two guys end up becoming scapegoats. And to handle being a scapegoat at 15 or 17 years old, that's really, really difficult. It's really, really difficult. So I feel like Arteta let them play. He let them show glimpses, at least, of what they could do. And when he felt that the game was going to start to get that little bit tougher, or when he felt like we needed consolidation, he took them both off. He protected them, wrapped them back up in cotton wool. But he's done that with them now sort of chomping at the bit and with that enthusiasm to just go again at the next opportunity. So I think it's really, really good and smart management. First half, I actually thought we looked really soft-centered. That's as fragile a defensive Arsenal performance, I think, as I've seen from the Gunners. It wasn't good at all. Miles Lewis-Skelly was having problems at left back. He got caught in possession on a few occasions. I thought we were giving the ball away sloppily in midfield. I thought we were completely devoid of ideas when we got the ball forward and when we were trying to open up Brighton. And there were so many occasions where they looked to hit us on the transition. And Arsenal are normally a very, very good team at dealing with transitions and preventing the opposition from kind of making something of those. But you only have to look at the stats. Like, we had 50.1% of the possession versus Brighton's 49.9%. So very, very evenly matched in that sense. This wasn't Arsenal domination, which is what we've become accustomed to seeing. We've had 16 shots. They've had 18 shots. So it was a high volume shot game. Brighton had more shots on target than us, 6 versus our 5. Total touches inside the opposition box, Arsenal with 43, Brighton with 24. So we beat them in that front. But you just sort of roll through the stats, and I'm not going to go through every single one. And you can see that this was a game where we needed efficiency. And we showed efficiency in the end by scoring 2 goals. The goal that we got just before the hour mark, I think that really did set us on our way. But then, of course, given what Brighton had created earlier on in the game and the fact that we didn't have the regular back four out there and the regular goalkeeper, there was a bit of worry, wasn't there? There was a bit of stress. I could certainly feel it inside the stadium. The crowd was a little bit anxious at times. I felt like the crowd last night got, took it or found it quite hard actually to get going, because it just seemed to, feel a little bit flat. It felt like a League Cup night, essentially, where a lot of the regulars haven't gone. Some have picked up tickets. Some have taken their children. Some have had to dash a little bit early, because let me tell you this, right? And I know there have been a lot of people watching from abroad or from the comfort of their homes, looking at the screen at like 85 to 90 minutes and saying, where's everyone gone? Like, people were heading for the exits, probably as early as just after Bukayo Saka's second goal on 76. But people were heading for the exits, and I can imagine that looking from a distance, you're going, what the hell? Why are these people going? Let me tell you this, right? The London area and getting out of it last night was carnage. carnage. There were so many train cancellations yesterday all around London. It took me nearly an hour and 45 minutes to drive to Arsenal, and it normally takes me less than half an hour. So whatever was going on, someone told me that the M25, for those of you that aren't London based, which is the orbital motorway around London, that was messed up, and that led to traffic all around the capital. I'm not sure, but I found a load of traffic, so I understand why people maybe felt they needed to catch those trains or get back in their cars ever so slightly earlier, just because it was chaos and carnage around London yesterday. I don't know exactly what that's down to. I heard about the traffic on the M25 or a closure or whatever. But yeah, you can kind of understand where people are coming from. But yeah, first half, if you look at Sofa scores stats, they have Brighton down as having 3 big chances and Arsenal down as having 0, which kind of summarizes how that first half went. I thought we struggled to create. I think we looked like a side that had made 10 changes. We looked like a side that was trying to figure out new combinations. We looked like a side that was made up largely of players that haven't played anywhere near enough football at the start of this season and who were sort of shaking off the cobwebs. And you could kind of see the rust on them. In particular, I thought Christian Norgard looked rusty yesterday. You know, I thought Miles Lewis-Skelly looked rusty, which was a little bit strange because he's obviously played in those Champions League games. I thought in the second half he was much, much better, but he started the game a little bit shaky. I felt like Eza was a little bit casual at times in the first half, but maybe that's partly why Mikel picked him and chose him, because he kind of has this ability to, more so when he plays wide, by the way, to just cruise through a game. And I feel like that was maybe the case last night. But yeah, look, going in at the break, it was 0-0. I think we were slightly fortunate that we went in at 0-0. But it was clear that improvement was needed. Look, we're going to take a really, really short pause. And when we come back, we're going to work our way through the second half, some individual performances. Plus, on top of that, we are going to take your questions and your thoughts from the live chat box, which I'm really, really looking forward to. We're going to take a really, really short pause and we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. Like and subscribe. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Now, of course, we've got to get a cheeky read in, and I'm going to let you guys know about a very special service that you can utilize, and they have partnered up with us here at the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, and that is, of course, Med Express. Did you know that 1 in 5 men in the UK experience changes in their sexual performance as they get older? Med Express can provide support in minutes through a free online consultation. MedExpress has been one of the country's leading online pharmacies since 2013, with over 1.5 million customers. By completing a short online consultation, they'll suggest the right treatment for your concerns, all from the comfort of your own home. Their UK-based clinical team will support you every step of the way and send your medication straight to your door. And the best bit is the whole process is online. You don't have to visit your GP. It's hard to feel like yourself when personal health issues affect you, but MedExpress is there to offer you discreet and convenient professional guidance. Visit medexpress.co.uk to check out your eligibility and get £40 off with the code TCOAG. And I'll leave the link in the description. Right, let's get on to the second half, shall we? And obviously, Arsenal, I thought, came out in the second half much improved. And I thought, for Mikel Arteta, I thought he had a decision to make at the break, because you could have quite easily gone, this isn't working. Let me turn to my bench. Let me bring on a couple of the big boys just to stabilize things and just to give us that little bit extra. And he didn't. And one of the questions that he was asked in the press conference, and I was in the press conference, but I wasn't working for BBC Radio yesterday. I was working for the club last night. So, I wasn't one of those given priority to ask a question. But there would have been that temptation to do that. And one of the questions he was asked was about the young players. Like, was there a temptation at the break to take off a Dowman or a Harriman-Annous and bring on a Saka? And it's no slight on Harriman-Annous or Dowman. It's just that obviously Bukayo, Saka, and Victor Gyökeres are experienced top level footballers that will, that will bring you a certain something that is completely unrealistic to expect from two kids, essentially. But Mikel Arteta was very clear to highlight that he didn't feel that the problems in the first half were anything to do with those two young lads. And that's why they stayed on. He talked about how we were sloppy. He talked about how we were trying to find combinations. He said that he kind of expected the performance to be that way, having made 10 changes, and he acknowledged that it was a risk and that it was a gamble. But I think the most significant thing that happened at halftime in terms of just shifting the game our way was nothing to do with Arsenal, and it was Brighton, who I think shot themselves in the foot. I really, really do believe that. And I got the feeling in the press conference room that was the general consensus, just based on some of the questions that were put to Fabian Hürzeler. Again, I was just an observer sitting at the back of the room, but he took Kostoulas off at halftime. Now, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, of course, it's because the Greek lad went off. Of course, Harry's going to say that. No, honestly, Kostoulas and Symeou, who were the two players at the top end of the pitch for Brighton, along with Jorginho Rutter, who was playing from the other side, I thought they were their biggest threat. I thought those combinations were working for Brighton. I thought those two as a pair, especially with Rutter involved as well, had the capability to cause Arsenal problems. And at half-time, Hürzeler takes off Kostoulas and brings on Ayari, who's not the same type of player. And that, for me, was Fabian Hürzeler shooting himself in the foot. And I don't really understand why he did that. He was asked about that change, and he said it was a physical thing. And then the follow-up question was, well, is he injured? And the answer was no, but he's still adapting to life in the Premier League, and he's still, trying to get up to speed with the physical level and all the rest of it. And I just thought, even still. But, from an Arsenal perspective, I saw a more aggressive Arsenal. I saw a more cohesive unit. I saw better combination play. I saw a little bit more aggression. And it looked to me like just tactically we'd ironed a few things out. And again, you got to give praise to the management there, because obviously they've spotted some things during that first half. And in that short spell that you have during halftime, they've been able to rectify those problems and plug those holes. And then on 57 minutes, we get the breakthrough. And Ethan Nwaneri had a couple of sighters, hadn't he, up until this point. Ethan Nwaneri loves a shot. He loves a shot from the edge of the box. And that's one of the things I love about him. And I think it's one of the things that he brings to the table that a lot of our other players don't. It's in a lot of ways what makes him unique within this Arsenal squad. But the move, the way we carved Brighton open there was just magnificent. Eze involved. Marino's flick was just brilliant. Just brilliant, sensational. And you know what? Mikel Merino, when he first arrived, I'll be honest, I'll put my cards on the table. I was like, I'm not really sure about this guy. And over the course of last season, I started to think he's a great squad player and he's done an admirable job at centre forward, but I'm still not really sure if I'm having him in midfield. And I wouldn't have him in our best 11, don't get me wrong. But in terms of what he offers this squad and his leadership and his, know-how and his experience and just producing that bit of quality when you need it, it's just magnificent. The back heel to release Lewis Skelly was excellent. The cut back to Nwaneri, brilliant too. The finish, good from Nwaneri. And it was interesting because in commentary, a few moments before, Ethan Nwaneri had a shot where he took a touch. And then the keeper was able to get down low and save it. And David Hillier, to his credit, he said, if I was Nwaneri, I would take those on first time. He literally said that. And a few minutes later, Nwaneri does exactly that. He takes it on first time and he beats the keeper. In all fairness, I think that if you're the goalkeeper, Steele, I think that if you get down the way he does and you get a touch on the ball the way he does, I think you got to save that. I really, really do. So we had a little bit of luck there, I think, with that. But the build-up play deserved the goal, didn't it? Because it was just exquisite football. And I was really, really pleased to see it. And then on around about 70 minutes, Mikel Arteta, I think, felt the need to consolidate, to try and ensure that we was going to get through this unscathed. And so he made 3 changes. Big Gabby, Timber and Saka all came on for Hincapie, White and Dowman. Look, Dowman's 15. You're never going to have to justify, I don't think, taking him off after sort of 70 minutes of senior football. Hincapie played very, very little football. Gabriel came on to just solidify and shore things up. Timber coming on for White because, again, White's minutes have been limited and that's the right thing to do. But when I said earlier that it was almost the perfect outcome for Mikel, it's because, you know, Gabby, Timber and Saka, 3 players that maybe not Timber so much because we'd have been quite comfortable in Ben White playing, but certainly in Gabby and Saka going into the game, they're 2 players that I probably wouldn't have had the cojones to overlook, and I probably would have picked them both. So to get the result that you want, to progress through to the next round, and to only expose those 2 in particular, because one was ill at the weekend, the other one barely made it through the game and had to end up playing the 90 minutes because William Saliba went off. To only have to expose those guys to 20 minutes each, I think that's a really good outcome. So we make those changes, and on 76 minutes, Arsenal score again. And Bukayo Saka's the one that gets the goal. And I've never been so unhappy to see Bukayo score in my life. And it's nothing to do with Bukayo. It's because I would have loved Andre Harriman-Annous on his first start for the first team to just have his moment. But it was well saved when it broke to Saka. Really clever because he takes a smart touch to just remove himself from the kind of goalkeeper's view. And open the space for him to slot it in without any problems. But that was a goal very, very, very much made by Jurien Timber, if we're being honest. It was brilliant play from him. Fantastic play. And also, what was also quite funny was that, you know, throughout the game up until that point, we offered 0 from set pieces, like 0. And considering we're set piece FC, that takes some getting used to, doesn't it? But the minute that Saka and Gabriel came on, all of a sudden, like, our corners were a thing. Our set pieces were a thing. So, yeah, look, Gabby, Timber and Saka really did raise the bar and raise the level and just ensured that we got through the game. And once it was 2-0, it was curtains very much for Brighton, wasn't it? Let's just run through 3 or 4 individual performances, and then I want to get your thoughts and questions from the live chat. So start getting them in. If you haven't done so already, I'd love to hear from you. Just a quick reminder that if you are with us on YouTube, and you haven't done so already, be sure to leave a like on the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. All of that stuff, it really, really does help. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review as well. That really, really does help. And if you'd like to go one further, you can support us by becoming a Chronicles of a Gooner patron. And we're going to have an audio bit out for you guys a little bit later on today. That'll be with you this afternoon. So, yeah, if you want to support the pod for less than the price of a cup of coffee, each month you can do so. You get exclusive bonus content, you get ad-free episodes, and you get a direct line into me and all the other patrons. And we can have whatever chats and conversations within reason, I should say, that you want. So Max Dowman, I got to talk about him just very quickly. I mean, there's not really that many superlatives that I haven't already used about Max Dowman in the past. So at the risk of repeating myself, I just want to highlight the significance of yesterday for him. You know, Arsenal's youngest ever starter, youngest ever player. That is remarkable. And when you think about how young he is, and he's still not going to be 16 for another couple of months, you just look at it and you go, like, this is the kind. Do you remember, like, when Chelsea set that record for the lowest amount of goals conceded? You looked at that and you went, that's never going to be broken. When Arsenal went invincible, you looked at that and you went, wow, that's going to take some beating, isn't it? You look at this with Max Dowman, and I know footballers are getting better at younger ages and all the rest of it, just generally across the board. But my God, this is remarkable. And I don't think anyone's going to ever take that record away from Max Dowman. So congratulations to him. Showed some beautiful touches. The way he can glide past the player is just incredible. And he does it with such ease and elegance and class. You can't help but watch him and be excited. So, he didn't score on the night. And from an overall perspective, I don't think it was a great attacking performance from Arsenal, but it was in no way down to Max Dowman. He showed glimpses of what he's all about. Brighton were petrified each and every time he got the ball. They would double up, sometimes triple up on him, and he'd just ghost past people as if they weren't there. They dished out a little bit of treatment to him, and I think that Max Dowman is going to have to get used to that. I really, really do, because when you're that type of player, when you've got that level of brilliance and that level of quality, there is always going to be that sort of tendency from the opposition to try and chop you down. What does an older man with lots and lots of pride feel when a 15-year-old's running loops around him and making him look silly? Anger, frustration. How do you then cope with the situation? In a lot of cases, they will chop you, they will get physical with you. And I think what Max Dowman's got to develop, and I've talked about this before, and it looks like it's at a pretty good level already to me, but he's got to have this kind of capacity to take those fouls. So that's partly building yourself up physically. But he's also got to be able to just, after each and every one of those fouls, erase it from the mind and go again. Because if he starts focusing on fouls and he starts focusing on it or anticipating the contact too much, and you've got to anticipate it to a point because you want to ride challenges so that you don't get too hurt, and you want to protect yourself as best as possible. And one of the good ways of doing that, I always thought, was riding challenges. But there is a danger that you can become a bit of a whinger and a moaner. And I'm not saying that Max Dowman is that for a second, but you don't want to get to that space, because then referees have less sympathy for you, just generally speaking, and you end up struggling even more. Like, for instance, I thought he had a shout for a penalty last night. He didn't get it. And Max Dowman winning penalties is becoming a bit of a thing. But he's also got to be a little bit careful that he doesn't develop a reputation for that, because if he does, he's going to find it harder to win a penalty than anybody else. And let's be honest, he's going to be fouled probably more than most. Obviously, Piero Hincapie played last night, which was good to see, because obviously we bought this guy in the summer, initially on loan. There is an option to buy. I'm pretty confident Arsenal are going to exercise that clause. And, it's been a long time coming, him making his kind of full Arsenal debut. It was his first start for the club. Played at centre-back. I personally don't know what he's been brought in to be. Like, we know he's got that ability to play centre-back and left-back, but I'm not sure what Mikel views him as. I got to be honest, I think he did fine at centre-back, but if it came down to one of him or Calafiori playing at centre-back in the absence of Gabriel, with the other one playing at left-back, or Lewis Skelly playing at left-back, I feel like Calafiori might be the more central defender type. Does that make sense? Like, whenever I've watched Hincapie, he's played as like a left-back. And he's done fine, and he's a warrior, and he's a fighter, and he's a battler, and he'll give it absolutely everything. He's very, very aggressive. But I feel like he's maybe just slightly more a left-back to me than he is a centre-back. But to have that capacity to play there is obviously very, very important, and is obviously part of the reason we signed him. I mentioned Christian Norgard a little bit earlier on. I thought he was sloppy at times. I thought he was rusty. When I talked about players shaking off and dusting off the cobwebs, he was very much one of those players. But then again, and it's a bit like some of the conversations we've had around Victor Gyökeres at the start of the season, where I feel some of the criticism's been harsh. What is it that you expected from them? Because I know what Christian Norgard's level is, and I've known it for many, many years. And I got a lot of shit, actually, for saying at the time that we signed him that, this is a squad signing, but it doesn't really improve us. I thought Norgard was a little bit shaky last night. And, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because of how little football he's played and all the rest of it. But I think you saw the level drop quite significantly. So when people keep saying, we've got this amazing squad and we've got two teams, yeah, we've got a really, really good squad, but you can't have two equally good teams. No one in the world does. And Norgard is not on the level of Rice or Zubimendi. There's no question about that. And obviously Nwaneri, look, I thought in the first half he could have done more. But on Nwaneri, I think that, as I say, he probably felt that he should have played more so far this season. He probably feels that way. And I was really hoping that he would take the opportunity to sort of show the manager that he's deserving of more minutes and deserving of more playing time. And while I don't think his overall performance was amazing, he scored. And it was the important moment in the game, really, that set us on our way. So I think, that's massive, and congratulations to him. And I'm very, very pleased for him. Very, very pleased for him. Let's take a few more, or let's take a few of your questions, shall we? Just a reminder, if you haven't done so already, very, very, very briefly, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're listening on audio, please do leave us a review. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can do so via the link in the description, patreon.com/Chronicles of Good. Did I say that fast enough? Okay. I didn't want to waste anyone's time. And I don't want Guitar Solo in the chat getting upset that I spend too much time talking about it. Okay, get your questions in. Let's tackle some of those now. Guna Oz says, Harry, I'm not from the UK, so I've just got to ask, is it true that Dowman has not got more senior team minutes because he still has school responsibilities? He'll still be in school. Yeah. And it's a very, very unique situation that Arsenal find themselves in because he is not able to sign a pro contract. He is currently about to embark on a scholarship with the club, which I think, and I'm not across this as much as other people, and I don't know the ins and outs, but I think sort of involves sort of learning football, but also learning at the same time. There'll be schemes in place for young scholars at the club. And so, a bit like the American style scholarship, where like you get into a certain college based on your ability to play a sport or to play music or perform or whatever it is. That is kind of a similar thing here. But yeah, at that age, he can't change with the first team. There's so many sort of things. There's so many bits of red tape there. And yeah, that does make it a little bit more difficult, I suppose. Auntie Clockwise says, how do you see Ben White's future at the club? Looks unlikely he will get his place back from Timber, but can't see a player of his caliber being happy as a backup either. What's your take? At this moment in time, I'm not worried about it. Ben White's a really chilled and relaxed character by the looks of things. And I think sometimes if you're a professional, you can get frustrated at not playing, and you can be irritated by the fact that you're being overlooked. But when you are looking at the guy that is keeping you out, playing at the level that Jurrien Timber is right now, I think you can probably take some comfort from that. And you know that old classic, like when you were younger and a girlfriend blows you off and says, "Oh, it's not you, it's me." Like, it's not you, it's me. And then you look at it and you go, "Oh, it's not me, it's you." I feel like Ben White can look at the Jurrien Timber thing and go, "It's not me. I'm a bloody good right back, and I'm playing at a really high level when I get the opportunity and when I'm fit. But you're just brilliant, and there's not much I can do about that." And while the team is winning and being successful, and listen, Jurrien Timber's going to need protected, and there's going to be games that he's going to miss over the course of the season. But I think if you're Ben White, while the team's winning and everything's good, and you're still working on your fitness, I don't think it's that much of an issue, to be honest. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine with it. Sugar says, Harry, do you think yesterday's performance showed that Max is ready for more first team minutes? Yeah, I do. I thought he was ready for first team minutes the minute I watched him in preseason. I watched him at the back end of last season playing for the under 18s. I was very, very lucky to be at a couple of the under 18s games at Colney. And I thought at that point, this kid's just levels above what he's currently playing at. But at the same time, you always have that feeling and that concern about how that translates. He can dribble past everyone at under 18s level, but will he be able to do that in the Premier League? How many players does he pass in the Premier League before someone kicks him 10 foot up in the air? Does he understand that in the Premier League he's going to have to release the ball earlier? These were all things that I was thinking at the time. But he's shown me already in the few minutes that he's played, for the first team, whether that's last night where he came off the bench or sort of, last night where he started or other games, I beg your pardon, where he's come off the bench. I kind of look at it and I go, no, he understands the difference. He understands the step up. Seems like a very, very wise young man. Seems like he's got very good people around him. And I think he's going to be fine. But I do believe, he's ready to play more minutes. There's no question about that for me. No question whatsoever. Okay, I think we're going to sign out there. 49 minutes on the clock. That's enough of me rambling on. Nobody wants to hear any more, I'm sure. Remember, check us out on Patreon. We've got a Patreon episode coming your way a little bit later on today. It will be an audio episode. So make sure you are subscribed to us on Patreon. Also, like the video here, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, and all the rest of it. And I will see you all very, very soon. Arsenal history makers. The first English top flight in history to play 6 games in a month and win every single one without conceding a single goal. How about that as something to sign off on? I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.
Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.